and I said, hey, yeah, 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 hey, yeah, yeah. I said, hey, what's going on? Guys, Warlololock here. Today I'm bringing you the first part of a 4-part Affliction fucking Skype. The first part of a 4-part Affliction Warlock guide. Today I'm going to be talking about how to maximize your dot damage. And if you find this video helpful, or if you don't find it helpful, give it a like and a comment and favorite and a share and refresh the page 10 to 15 times. To avoid any confusion, I just want to go over some quick vocab so everyone knows what I'm talking about. Dot means damage over time. Unstable Affliction, Agony, and Corruption are all dots. They all do damage over time. Proc is anything that can occur to make you do more damage, such as Jade Spirit or the non-on-use trinket. They can proc and then you do more damage when they proc. Tick. Tick just means when your dots do damage, that's a tick. Each time it does damage is 1 tick. Base duration. That's the duration of your dots when you apply them. Also, the duration that it tells you in the tooltip. I'm just going to go ahead and explain each dot really quick and what they do. Unstable Affliction has a 13-second base duration. It does the most damage per tick, and it has Dispel Protection, because if it's dispelled, whoever dispels it is immediately crit for 100 to 150k, and they're also silenced for 4 seconds. Agony has a 24-second base duration. It starts off doing the least amount of damage and stacks up 10 times. Once it reaches 5 stacks, it does damage equal to Corruption, and once it reaches 10 stacks, it does damage about equal to Unstable Affliction. Corruption has an 18-second base duration. It does the least amount of damage out of all your dots, and it has a chance on each tick to generate 1 soul shard. Also, if you're running with Glyph of Siphon Life, which you should be pretty much all the time, you gain 0.5% of your health every time Corruption ticks. If you look in your spellbook, you're going to find this passive ability called Pandemic. It says, when refreshing your periodic damage effects, duration remaining on the previous effect is added to the new one up to a maximum of 50% the base duration. This means that you can increase your dots to 150% of what it says in the tooltip. As long as the dot has at least 50% of its base duration left, for example Unstable Affliction, as long as it has 7 seconds left, you can refresh it to its maximum duration. I was a little late on that one, but you can see its maximum duration is a little over 20 seconds. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is called dot snapshotting. What this means is that when you apply your dots, it essentially takes a snapshot of whatever stats you have when you apply it, and it does damage based on those stats. So if you get a trinket proc, your dot damage won't go up unless you refresh it. And if you lose the trinket proc, the damage won't go down unless you refresh it. And I'm going to give an example of this right now. So, fun fact, if you spam Agony, it stacks up much faster. So 10 stacks of Agony, I'm going to put it on both targets, and I'm going to use my cooldowns right before Jade Spirit ends. Oh, it's back. Right before Trinket proc ends, I'm going to keep spamming it on both targets, full duration. Okay, it's over. So they're both doing the same amount of damage at the same rate, but if I get rid of all my buffs and I refresh it on one of the targets, takes a snapshot of my stats, does much less damage. And you can see the other target that is doing a lot more damage still has a good 14 seconds left now, and remember, it was at full duration when my trinket proc ends. So if you refresh your dots right after your trinket proc ends, you lose up to 36 seconds of cooldown damage with Agony. This is why most people say Agony is the most important Warlock dot, because you can almost always keep it up doing cooldown damage 100% of the time. Now I'm going to talk about Soul Swap. So when you put a dot up to full duration, and then you Soul Swap, and then you wait until the max time you can to exhale, basically the duration of that dot is frozen within this Soul Swap buff. So you can keep it inside you as long as you want, and you won't lose duration. So I'm going to keep swapping back and forth between these two targets, and I'm not going to lose duration. Not nearly as much as the one that I originally put on it, at least. Basically, the only time your dots lose duration is when you don't have the Soul Swap buff. I'm swapping the same exact Agony that I put on this target, yet the one that I have that I'm constantly swapping is at 24 seconds, while this one ran off. So you gain about 2 to 3 times as much duration if you keep spamming Soul Swap. And this is really important. You have to keep spamming Soul Swap. And that's not the only move you use though. And the reason you can do this is because when you inhale, you get 3 seconds to do whatever you want. So I can inhale, I can fear a target, and then I can exhale. And this is also another very important reason you need to stack haste instead of mastery. One more important thing to note if you're using this technique is that Agony doesn't stack up if you have Soul Swap on you. So if you Soul Swap Agony off a target and keep Soul Swapping it onto other targets, it's not going to build up, so you need to get it to at least 8 or 9 stacks before you start swapping it to all the other targets. The reason that you want to keep spamming Soul Swap is to keep your Dark Soul dots up. It's basically the only reason. So while your trinkets are procced, you're basically free to do anything you want, because you can refresh your dots right before they end at any time. So right before Jade Spirit, I refreshed full duration, and at this point, you're going to want to keep spamming Soul Swaps and doing things in between it. But in arenas, that's obviously not going to be entirely possible. There's going to be line of sights, there's going to be CCs, there's going to be interrupts, so it's going to be a lot more difficult to do that in arenas, but you get the idea that it helps to cast things between Soul Swaps. So quick recap over everything. 1. When your trinkets proc, okay, you want to refresh your dots to full duration. Spam them to everyone, make sure everyone's got Dark Soul dots on them. Step 2. Spam haunts on kill target during this time. I didn't mention that, but yeah, do that. Step 3. Refresh dots right before your trinket procs are about to end. Step 4. Keep spamming Soul Swap and keep up your Dark Soul dots with as full of a duration as you possibly can. Step 5. Agony is going to last the longest out of any dot. So, when your dots start to run low, I'll just wait a minute, and you can't Soul Swap from any other targets that have Dark Soul dots, then you just want to refresh the dot that's about to run out, and let the other ones with Dark Soul stay on there until they're at their last couple seconds. So I refresh Corruption, Agony's still up there, and right now I'm going to refresh my dots right before they're about to end so that I get the full duration of Dark Soul dots. So basically what this entire video is saying is keep up your Dark Soul dots as long as possible. I just showed you a few tricks that will help you along the way.